Hello, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 29th of June 2025. Hope you're well. Hope you are having a great weekend. Hot, isn't it? I think that is the phrase of the word today. Hot, hot, hot. And that is actually something we're going to be talking about today. Is how are we dealing with the heat at the moment? How are we coping with the heat with our gardening? What are we doing differently? As you can tell, I'm probably looking quite sweaty. My hair's a mess because it is just so warm. Let's before we get into that, let's find out who we've got in the audience. We have got, oh, let's start over on Instagram as well. We have got Turbo Stream saying, "Good evening, Venture Podcasters. Good evening to you." Gary is there saying, "Good evening." Good evening to you. Nathan is there. Good evening, or absolutely boiling in Kent, he says with a smiley face. It's not much better in Sussex, let me tell you that. Hi, Grave Gas. Hello, everyone. Sorry I missed last week. I was watching a load of old bands in Milton Keynes. As long as you had a good time, that's all that matters. Richard Golden, bang on time. Hello, all. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Anna Jones, good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Digwell, phew, nearly late for the show. I was up in the attic looking for my summer duvet. I had my summer duvet down in January, to be fair, but that's because I don't like the heat. Chili Kate, hi everyone, certainly very warm. Stuart Jackson, evening Richard and the Veg Army, hope you are all well. And Scott is there saying good evening all as well. Good evening, good evening, good evening. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's check on Instagram. Nothing going on over there at the moment. What are you doing to deal with the heat? In particular, the lack of rainfall that we seem to be having at the moment. And this is a very hot topic, if you excuse the pun at the moment, because it is hot. It is hot, hot, hot. And we haven't had rain for quite a while, or any meaningful rain, I should say. What I'm noticing is that our gardens have really taken a lot of watering to get to a decent level. They are going to need a lot of care to get it through. Unless we get a lot of rain very suddenly, we are really going to have to do a lot of watering to get our plants through, get our garden growing. But all's not lost. One of the things that I'm a big fan of doing, something that I think is just as important as watering your plants, feeding your plants, is mulching your plants as well. And mulching is so good at reducing the amount of loss of water from the soil to the atmosphere, because it just reduces evaporation. The best for me, the best mulch is compost. If you are able to produce enough of it, if you are able to produce enough compost, which is easier said than done. So what's second best? Well, I've used grass clippings in the past. When I've cut the lawn, all those grass clippings end up as a mulch around my plants, and that actually does work quite well. But you need a lot of grass clippings to cover a good allotment or a good vegetable garden. So we could go buy compost, but that's quite expensive. I've now moved onto straw because I'm finding straw. I can buy a bale of straw for £3.50. I take it apart and I can do 1.5 beds, and that is good. And what I've noticed, the reason I do that, if I was to buy compost, it would cost me about £35 to fill those beds up with compost. So straw for me is really a cost-effective way of dealing with it. Added to that, it's also an organic material. It will rot down. It will end up in the compost bins, but it is so good for me to use straw. But what other tips have you got? What are you doing to tackle this heat? Jenny says, hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I was just dishing up the family's tea. Too hot for me to eat yet. It is warm. I've already eaten, but it is warm. Chili Kate says, I was up at a natural time for a Sunday just to get a few hours in before it got too hot. Actually, that is a good tip there. This is something I've always also said. Getting up early to go down on the allotment or into the vegetable garden before it gets too hot is a good way. You do it in the cooler parts of the day. I have to say, it does come with drawbacks. The drawbacks being, if I got up into my garden at 5:30 in the morning and fired up the lawnmower, then I fired up the lawnmower at 5:30 in the morning. I'm going to upset my neighbours. So as a comment just came through and distracted me there. It's going to upset my neighbours, and that is not a good. It's same on the allotment. If you do have neighbours, you do have to think about the neighbours at the same time. But getting up early is definitely one of the tricks I use as well. Jenny says, hello, everyone. Oh, I've read that one. Turbo Stream says, I'm doing minimal gardening, really. Only now doing spot watering now. So spot watering is a good tip. That's where you just water the plants that actually need it. Instead of watering an entire bed, you just water around the plants if it makes any difference, to get the water where it's needed. Stuart says, I've put straw around all my fruit. It helps with water retention. Big thumbs up from me. Big thumbs up from me, because straw is what I'm using. And it is noticeable. It is noticeable the difference it's making. Jenny says, I like chop and drop, as that not only feeds the soil, it also helps hold in the moisture. See, chop and drop, I understand chop and drop a bit more now since talking to you guys and watching a few videos on it. I'm still unsure. Let's say you drop a single branch, how that's going to make much of a difference, but that could just be my understanding. Perhaps something I need to practice or experiment with to see if it does make any difference. Again, you guys are probably much more aware of what's going on there than I am. Digra, this is the comment that distracted me for a moment. What are those icons next to people's names? A crown with a #1 next to it. I don't know. I can't see them from here. I cannot see them from here, so I don't know what they are. If somebody could take a photo and share it with me, I'll be able to have a look. That'd be interesting. Turbo Stream says it's so dry now that there isn't much. It's so dry down here that much isn't doing anything now. Mulch. It works while the soil is damp, but now it's dry underneath the mulch. That is a very good point. Yes. So what I always recommend we do when we're going to lay a mulch is that you water really, really well before you lay the mulch. And I mean, let's say you normally do 1 watering can, you would do 4 watering cans before laying the mulch. Really, really, really soak the ground well, get that water soaking down into the ground, lay the mulch down. Really, we should be laying the mulch much earlier in the season, probably March, April time, to really lock in that moisture. You can always pull the mulch away to plant plants. So, you know, I'm a big fan of it. I'm such a big fan of using mulch. Turbo Stream says, I wondered that did well, another YouTube feature. And Anna says it's a new chat leaderboard, apparently. Interesting. Rebecca says, evening. Good evening to you, Rebecca. Hope you are well. We're talking about how you are coping with gardening in this heat. It may not have gone unnoticed, but it is warm. Turbo Stream says, mulch, not mulch, in that comment earlier. Digwell says, I went to the plots today, first time for 4 days. I need to water anything except for no need to water anything except for newish planted in the bales, but the bales are very wet inside. This is actually something else that I'm a fond believer that, yes, we need to water our plants when we first plant them, when they're trying to get established. But once the plants are established, I reckon you can get away with less watering, but when you do water, giving it a really, really thorough drench. Now, the exception being something that Digwell's doing is, of course, these straw bale gardening, which, as you know, I'm playing around with a bit myself. And they are very wet on the inside, so they are holding onto the moisture much better, as well as making compost at the same time. So growing in straw bales might be another option if you are struggling with this heat, because it's going to hold on to that water. It's going to hold on to that dampness. It might be another way. If we do have a lot of hot, sunny weathers, perhaps straw bale gardening is the way forward. Who knows? And Adrian has joined and says, hi, Richard and all. Good evening to you. Jenny says, we have been making capillary tables on old pallets. Each pallet has 2 grow bags that fit perfectly. Trays are filled with water at the moment, but I will get some matting for some sand for other and sand. I think talking about more some sand, but capillary matting, that is a good trick actually for your particularly your young plants. As you know, I'm a big fan of autopots. I've got autopots in my greenhouse where I've got my tomatoes, cucumbers, chilies, aubergines, which I've got to say are growing really, really well. They are in there growing fantastic. Because they're in the autopots. For those that don't know, autopot is an irrigation system. It has water in a reservoir which does fill up our other containers and everything else and keep them running like that and keeps our pots hydrated. I've also got them in my new shed, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. I've also just recently installed one into my bean bed too. So autopots got a lot of good things to talk about them really. Digwa says that's a bit annoying talking about this new thing. So I think somebody sent me a message, so I'll have a look and see if that's a picture. Kate has joined. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Idaho has joined. Hello, Richard and everyone. Hello to you. Idaho, you're probably in a good position because you probably deal with heat every year. How do you tackle with the high heats of summer? Jenny says the capillary tables will be for seedlings, sowings, cuttings, and plants growing on. I have lost so many from being dry and bolting, so trying to improve for next year. Absolutely, absolutely. Turbo Stream says my mulch was doing a fine job, but is so dry now. The soil is like dust. We must be in a drought now here. I don't know. I don't know when the definition of being in a drought kicks in, but it's very, very dry. Very dry. And it says, I've been picking some of my fennel today, even though it's quite small, just in case it bolts. So picking a bit earlier to stop it from bolting. I have to admit my spinach, which isn't a surprise really, that's bolted. That has bolted, and that's a bit annoying because I was enjoying picking the spinach, but it's left to some problems because that's bolted. It's gone to seed because it is so, well, one of the reasons is it's so dry. Jenny says the ground is so dry, my walking stick end went down a crack in the grass that I couldn't see. It was at least 2 inches deep. Scary. Yeah. We were having cracks in our soil back in April, May. So it's not a surprise at all. Rebecca says, yesterday and today, I've just got my head around sitting back and enjoying my garden. It's too hot to garden, and before we know it, the garden will be gone. So I'm enjoying every minute. It's true. Got to enjoy every minute. It is true. Digwell says, I didn't even need to water the potatoes in the bowels. Oh, forgot. I did water the potatoes in buckets. They have lasted 4 days with a starch mulch on top. See, again, I found that my potatoes have not needed watering with all the straw. Basically, instead of earthing up potatoes with compost, I put my potatoes in the ground. They grew, and I've covered them over with straw. They're in my, my big corrugated iron beds on the allotment. They are in those, and the straw is pretty much halfway up the inside of the beds. And those potatoes have not needed watering, and we're getting decent potatoes out of them as well. I'm excited to see how good the potatoes will be when we harvest the main crops, which won't be for a while, but they're really doing well. Toby Stream says, I mulched in March as I did with a thick layer in the winter. All I can do is sopped water the plants I want to keep, but it's so dry I might have to water the blackcurrants soon. Absolutely. If you have to do it, you have to do it. But Stuart says, I'm really struggling to keep everything watered as all 4 water butts are now empty. I don't like using tap water, but it's my only option now. I'm with you. I'm having to use tap water myself because the water butts are empty, and it's annoying. It's annoying. There's nothing we can do about it. It's far better that we use whatever water we can use instead of hoping for the best. Idaho says, I water twice a day, every day. If I use a mulch, insects hide underneath and destroy my garden. Interesting. So Idaho has opted for watering twice a day, which is a lot of water. That is a lot of water twice a day, plus a lot of work. One important thing I will say It is a keep yourself hydrated. Every few minutes, I will be drinking my orange squash. When I'm out in the garden, even in the morning, every 10 minutes, I'm having a swig of water to keep hydrated. One of the most important things. I've had sunstroke before. It is not pleasant at all. Hargrave says, all my choy plants have bolted. Can I still use the leaves or will they taste awful? Chances are they will probably taste quite bitter, quite tough. But give it a try and see how it gets. I would say that they're past their best. Pak choi can be a pretty sensitive plant, to be honest. There's quite a few of our plants that I think we're going to talk about tonight that can be very sensitive when it's dry. Rebecca's asking if Jenny she's okay. Idaho says sometimes I've used shade cloth and that helps. So shade cloth is just a way of shading out the plants, giving your plants a bit of a shade to stop the evaporation. It kind of works. It can work. I don't know if we sell shade cloth in the UK that much, though. Digwell has just done a quick search on what a drought is. No set definition like there is with a heat wave. Okay, interesting. And Kate says, I put my chilies in my shed one day and they died. It has windows, but they weren't in direct sun. They were in direct or weren't. Lesson learned. We've all been there. Turbo Stream says, if we didn't have mains water, then I wouldn't have anything to harvest. I don't ever remember spring like this. A complete 180 from last year when it was so wet. Absolutely. I've never known a spring to be so dry as this either. As frustrating as it is, it's just something we've got to make the most of. I don't know what more we can say, really. It's just so frustrating. And it is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. Jennings says, in our old garden, we had a long washing line. When we had lockdown heat wave, I clamped bed sheets to the fence and pegged the other end. It made a good shade cloth. Yeah, I mean, I guess anything to create a bit of shade when it's hot like this is going to do the world of good for our plants. But what about ourselves? Let's talk about ourselves. How do we cope with the heat when we want to do some gardening? How do we cope with the hot weather when we want to do some gardening? Idaho says, I don't get any rain, which is understandable. And Turbo Stream says, my home garden is so dry, I'm using washing up water on my plants now. Recycling water, that is a good tip as well. Bath water, washing up water. I can't think of any other examples, but if we recycle what we have, it's going to help. And it keeps the bills down as well. The Digger says they should be okay. Those pak choi bolted in a stir fry. Stuart says, just a reminder to like, subscribe, and follow. I feel like I'm rushing through at the moment, though. So let's take it a little bit easier. I've seen as people have sent me photos. I'll come to those in a moment. Digwell says, shade cloth is sold in the UK with different levels of shade, 50, 60, 75 and 90%, etc. There we go. I can't say I've ever really seen it. I've just sort of thought about using some sort of cloth to create a bit of shade just to hold off the hot weather. Turbo Stream says, we have had rain, but it lasts about 20 minutes and just dampens the leaves a bit. Yeah. I mean, this is the trouble, isn't it? It's so hot that any rain we do get, we really need it to rain for a good couple of days to do any good. Good, solid rain. Good, solid rain is what we really need. Catch as much as we can in our water butts and let it water our plants as well. That's really what we need, I think. Really what we need. Kate says, I'm thinking about trying a PVC pipe with small holes and burying it and watering underground. I'd be interested to see if that would work. There's some people have made some beds like that, and sort of raised garden beds using it, and it sort of does work. But at the same time, when your plants are young, when they're new, the roots are not going to be able to reach down to the bottom. So you've got to be a bit careful with that. But once the roots are down, I mean, will it work? In a raised bed or a a planter, it would work. If it's in the soil, I'm going to say it wouldn't necessarily work because plants are trying to seek out the water table down anyway. But I've never tried it to say for certain. Digwell says, avoid gardening in the heat of day. Mad dogs and Englishmen. Yes. Again, I come back to the fact that um, I come back to the fact that, yeah, working in the hottest part of the day in the garden is not fun. And if you are out in the sun, as I said, drink plenty of water. Don't forget to wear sunscreen. Very, very important. Sunscreen on all over the place. Wear a hat. I have to admit, I don't like wearing hats. I struggle with wearing hats. I get too hot wearing hats. But you should wear a hat. That helps keep the sun off your head and particularly the back of your neck. And take regular breaks. Don't push yourself too hard. Easier said than done. But the garden will be there tomorrow. It's no good you putting yourself or making yourself ill. Kate says, I hate the heat if it's too warm while doing jaw jobs like my hydroponics. Yeah. Again, I'm with you on that. I hate the heat. I'm a cold person. I love being cold. Don't forget toilet water, says Turbo Stream. Perhaps not. LOL. There is something that I like using human waste as well as manure. There is possibly something that could happen with this. I'm not. I don't know enough about it, but I reckon it's possible if it's done the right way. What did Rebecca ask me? She just said she hoped you were okay after your fall. Tigwell, are you taking a piss to Turbo Stream? Rebecca says, I'm the same. Using any water I can. I've had my water butts installed on the plot for 4 months. Not a single drop has been collected. We've had no rain at all. Yeah, this is why we need rain. I'm going to have to start doing a rain dance soon to try and encourage that rain because we need it. We really do need it. But Digwell does go on as well with a good point on this very thing. We need a few gentle showers before a downpour so the rain doesn't just run off the ground, a pre-wetting sort of thing. That is also a very, very good point because what tends to happen over on Instagram, by the way, the Messy Allotment Tears joined Hope You Are Well. What does happen, this is also well known when we get these flash floods in the summer. When we get rain on dry soil, it doesn't soak into the ground. It becomes a runoff. And I want to say Cockermouth a few years ago, that was a prime example when we had a dry season, then it rained heavy and all that rain just didn't go into the soil. It just became like, well, the dry soil is like tarmac, like the road. It just became a river. And that's not what we want either. We want a few gentle showers just to soften up the soil and then a good heavy downpour. Digra says, I use Factor Tar on my head. Turbo Stream says, I stay inside in the heat now. I once had prickly heat. Never again. It's not pleasant either. Not pleasant at all. Jenny says, bless you, thank you. All okay. And Digra, many companies like Envirocycle sell human waste to farmers. Yep. Yep. I'm not so worried about the human waste as such. I'm more worried about what's mixed in with it, with the chemicals and things. Turbo Stream says, I took advantage of empty water butts and painted that side of my shed so I can move them. I would change the tap too. Again, I've got a story to tell you about that as well. And Nicola says, hi, lovelies. Sorry, I'm late. So my story, let's just quickly check Instagram. My story, some of you supporting members will know that my plans this weekend was that I had a brand new potting shed arrive on Friday. That I was potting up Friday and Saturday. Well, it's up. We've still got the felt on the roof, but it is up. It's 8 foot by 8 foot. It's a potting shed, so it's got windows at the front and side. So it's going to be somewhere for propagation, somewhere where I can start seeds off and get them growing. Really happy with my shed, though. Really happy. I cannot sing its praises well. I cannot sing its praises enough because I just love it. It's such a good shed. I got it from a company called Power Sheds. If anybody is interested, highly recommend you check them out because I'm really, really happy with their prices. and got a decent shed for the money as well. But yeah, I spent Friday and Saturday preparing the ground, getting it all level, putting in the footings, things like that, and then built the shed, which the actual building of shed, once the floor was level, once we were happy with the floor, was an absolute doddle. But just getting the floor in and then the roof on as well was a bit complicated, particularly the soffits around my neighbour's fence, because it's so hard up against my neighbour's fence. I couldn't fit down there. I had to send Amanda down there. But yeah, I got my new shed up, and it's because the water butts were empty that were attached to the old shed, it was nice and easy to move them. Although now I've not got anywhere to pop my water butts at the moment, or those water butts, I should say. Turbo Stream says, I dug a small divot next to the plants, then water then percolates into the soil. Yeah, that can work. That can work. I'm actually a big fan, as you know as well, of the Autopot system, but also last year at Gardeners World Spring Fair, I brought myself an Ollapot, OLLA, which is basically a terracotta pot that you sink into the soil, you fill it up with water, and it just gently eases out of that terracotta pot into the bed. And it works. The bed that Ollapot is in is definitely looking much greener than the beds that it's not in. So I'm a big fan of Ollapot as well. Really big fan of these Ollapots as a good way of keeping plants hydrated. It's an old-fashioned, it's a very ancient system of watering, but works. Digwell says, when I water my raised beds, I always water twice. Once with a sprinkle setting, then later with a drench setting on the hose to, as we were saying, to get that water wet before you water properly, so it soaks up the water. Turbo Stream's been looking at power sheds after I told him about them. Wix's sell them too. Yeah, they're in Wix's. Digwell says, I watched a shed re-roofing video on YouTube today. A great video on how not to do things. I haven't seen that, but I bet I can guess whose video that was. Nicholas says, I bought a potting shed recently off a Facebook Marketplace. It was £1,000 new. I paid 150 plus transport and dismantling add-on another 150. Now I need to find a spot for it. There you go. Bargains on Facebook Marketplace. I'm always reluctant to buy a second-hand shed in myself. I wanted to buy brand new because transport and things like that make it very difficult, and the way my old shed came apart, there was no way that was going back together. Jenny says, can I just pop in a little request to pop some water out for the wildlife? Yes. A dish on the ground for birds, hedgehogs, a saucer for bees, etc. Yeah, absolutely. Water for wildlife is important too. What was that noise? Did anybody else hear that Windows noise? But yeah, water for the wildlife, very, very important. I've got a dog's bowl and water troughs all over the place in my garden that birds and things can feed from or drink from, just to make sure that they have got water. Nicholas says, the yellow pot I've seen with irrigation connection, which I liked the idea of. Not seen the irrigation connection, but I'll have to keep my eye out for that. Jenny's come up with a mission. I forgot to say, if you have a mission or a cook-along idea for next week, put hashtag mission or hashtag cook-along in the comments, and we'll do a draw at the end to see what we will do. Over on Instagram, Colin B204 has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. Yes, I heard. Thumbs up all, says Nicola. Yeah, please do give us a thumbs up, a follow, subscribe, and all that jazz. Digwell says, I watered a frog today. He seemed to like it. Absolutely. Right, let's quickly go to this week's mission, because it seems like a good opportunity. As we're talking about how dry soil is, this week's mission seems like a good opportunity to go through that. Okay, so this week's mission was to start an organic bed, and we're going to grow this right throughout the season organically. This is the bed I've chosen. This did have my overwintered garlic, onions, and shallots and elephant garlic and things like that, which have all now been harvested. So I harvested all those up. I've run hoe through it a few times just to try and kill off any weeds. And then I've sown a row of carrots, a row of mizuna. We're going to be adding radishes and spring onions and other things like that into this bed as well. Now this is all going to be done organically. So we're not going to be adding chemicals. Everything's going to be naturally found feeds, fertilizers, etc., etc. Use of probably things like green manures, etc., etc. We've got more seeds to sow because I don't want to waste this space. We can put radishes, spring onions in and things like that, and lettuce, etc., etc. Basically, we're not going to waste this space. We want to try and make it as grow as much produce out of this bed as possible, but we're going to do it organically. And the other thing to bear in mind as well, I haven't actually watered this bed for the last couple of weeks, coming up to the time I was going to harvest the garlic and onions. So it is looking a bit dry, granted. We will water this tonight after the show, just to make sure that it is fully hydrated. It's going to need a really good watering, but that won't take too long. However, an organic garden bed has been started. In your eyes, is that a mission accomplished or mission failed? Let me know in the comments. Indeed, is that mission accomplished or mission failed? I think it's mission accomplished in my opinion, but I would say that because I did it. And this is going to be a long-term mission, I think, creating an organic garden bed. And I've started it. I think I've just got to figure out maybe every week or so, give you a bit of an update on what's going on there. But I think, and I've just seen Digwell come up with this, are plastic labels are allowed in organic beds? No idea, just asking. I would see that as being allowed because it's reusable. But this is going to be an education. Are they organic? That's a good question. Is it organic? But I mentioned before we went to that, how dry is that soil? You could see it. Admittedly, I haven't watered it for a couple of weeks because everything in there was coming out, the onions, the garlic. But how dry is that soil? It's really quite scary. Really quite scary. Nicholas came up with a mission: make a bee/pollinator drinking station or bird bath. It's on the list. That's on the list. Andrew says, "Evening, Richard and the Veg Grower A audience." That makes sense. How are you doing, Andrew? We're talking about how you're coping with the hot or the heat and gardening. Jenny says, cook along, make vegetable kebabs and cook them in the barbecue. Make a dip or a sauce to go with them. Vegetable kebabs, that's on the list. I've said that one already. Accomplished in my honest opinion. Thank you very much. So, what's going on Instagram? Gemma Molson has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. What else have we got? What else have we got? What other things have we got that can help cope with this summer? Now, one of the things I've been one of the things that I've been thinking a lot of, and it was based on a video I saw back end of last year, and it was a organic farmer, smallholder, I guess you could say, but they planted out their winter cabbages into beds, and they were annoyed that they had bare soil in between the plants and were wishing they'd put something in that soil to stop it from, being bare. And I think they were saying that what they're going to do next year is just plant out some green manures, possibly clover or something, and then plant into that some cabbages and things. Now, I like this idea. I was thinking that could work quite well at reducing the weeds, etc., as well. But I'm thinking in the heat of this summer, would that also work at reducing evaporation? Or on the flip side, would it absorb more water to hold or to keep something like clover going? What's your thoughts on that? Using a green manure as a ground cover crop to reduce evaporation. What do you think on that? What would you use underneath something like cabbages? I mean, I guess the three sister method is a prime example of how well that works, where you've got sweet corn and beans and squash all in the same bed. The sweet corn grows upright, the beans help fix nitrogen and climb up the sweet corn, and the squash, which is the point I'm trying to get to, shades out the soil because the leaves are so big. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on that? Scott just logging back in, lost connection. Digwell says, just thinking of the minuscule microplastics that will rub off the label every time it is moved. A bit extreme, though. It's a thought. It is a thought, actually, and I don't know how that works. I like to use plastic because it's reusable. I just use a pencil, rub it off every time. I know you sent me a pen that I've used as well, which is quite successful, but I find that the labels can be used several years running. They last, they're reusable, just rubbing it off with a pencil, washable, so there's no debris or anything, no spread of disease. The other option would be you can make wooden labels, but I don't like them. The reason being is they rot away. They're not very reusable. It's easy for the details on them to get washed off, even when using a pencil or something. I don't think there's anything better at this moment in time that I can think of than using plastic labels. But again, I could be wrong on that. Andrew says, I came back to town for a few days. It's mid 30 degrees all week and last week. Can't do anything except take my dog to swim in the river. Ooh, that is hot. But swimming in the river, that sounds like a good idea. I'm not sure we can do it in the UK at the moment, from what I'm hearing. But I do like the idea of swimming in a river. There are microplastics in tap water now. We can't escape it, says Turbo Stream. It's complicated. I'm not going to prefer. I'm not going to get. I'm not that. Yeah, complicated. Jenny says, "What does everyone prefer to water, in the morning or in the evening?" Good question. I prefer in the evening, so the plants have water in the soil longer. Good question. So, I don't have a preference as such. I tend to water the allotment in the evening because I tend to go to the allotment on the way home from work. So it's always watered in the evening. The garden, however, is watered in... No, it's not necessarily... No, it's watered in the evening as well. I would say I prefer the evening. That's my answer to that. I used to say I used to water in the morning, but I don't do that so much now. I tend to do other things in the morning and then watering in the evening before bed. Digwell says these are not new things. They've been around for at least 30 years, talking about the microplastics. Of course, the microplastics. They're a nasty thing, and so on. So yeah, when do you prefer to water your garden, especially in the heat of summer? Is there any difference? Does it make a difference to your plants whether you water in the morning or in the evening? The old way, or the sort of thought I was always told, is that when you water in the morning, it can lead to... what would be the problem? I can't remember what the problem was with water in the morning, but the evening it could lead to high humidity and things like that. I don't know. Turbo Stream says, I water in the morning, but I go in the mornings. I wouldn't make a special trip in the evening unless I grew at home. Good enough. Digwell says, I prefer morning to reduce slug damage, but I water when the plants tell me they need it, really. So Digwell, you've got a good answer there. How do you know when your plants are telling you they need water? How do you know? I know that's a very open-ended question. I'm asking it for a reason, because I think this is a good opportunity to try and sort of expand on the knowledge that we have to try and explain how do we know. Anybody else got an answer to that question? How do you know when your plants really need the water? Chili says, I prefer the evening. I go to the allotment just before 9 p.m. when I'm usually the last one there. The water pressure drops when lots are pulling from it. I've had that on my allotment as well. I have had that on my allotment where everybody has been watering and all our water troughs have been empty and slow to fill up, especially when the mains water has got a leak on it as well. But yeah, the water pressure dropping is a problem. Stuart says I water in the evening because it's easier for me. Good enough. And Chili says I leave. Plus, I leave for work at 7 a.m. I leave at 7:15, so I'm with you on that. I do like to do a few bits in the garden before I go to work, though. Kate says I water in the evening. I'm usually physically at my worst in the morning, so evening is easiest for me. Good enough. And Scott says there is someone on my allotment site that grows to sound and he plants hundreds of pumpkin plants and doesn't even water them in and never waters them and it always grows loads. Yeah, it's going to be a constant thing. There's always somebody that grows loads and never seems to water them and they get away with it. Tabby Stone says the plants get watered when they get watered. They will survive a lot longer than we think. Agree with that. Probably water them 3 times a week, but not everything each time. So here's another question for you. Do plants really need so much watering? Do they really need so much watering? The reason I say that is I've seen several of Charles Dowding's videos, who we all know is pretty good at what he does. And he often says that he doesn't need to water his plants. Once they're established, they need very little watering. And he puts that down, of course, to the use of compost and mulch, etc., etc. I'm wondering, would he need to water in this heat of summer? He possibly does. I don't know. But do plants really need watering, or can we mitigate the amount of watering that we really need to do? Question for you. Leaves, says Digwell. This is the question, answering my question. How do you know when a plant needs watering? Leaves very slightly wilting, but not bad enough to cause damage / bolting. Plus, I do the 2-knuckle test. Poke your finger in the soil, etc., down to the second knuckle. If the fingerprint tip comes out damp, then no need to water. Yeah. I should say no need to water is added up. This again comes back to what I said earlier, and we've said many times in the past. Some people will spend a few minutes watering and they're just sprinkling water all over the bed. It's not really doing any good. It's not really watering. It's just creating a bit of evaporation, I would say. When you water, you need to water well. You need the water to soak into the ground. And I'm sure you all know this. But spending just a few minutes watering is not enough. You need to spend a good hour, depending on the size of your garden, of course, to water. Just water well when you do water, says Turbo Stream. And Jenny says, I don't water plants in the ground apart from young or newly planted. I only water pots and trays. That brings me up to something else I was going to say, because a lot of my plants in pots are, I'm not going to say struggling, but then pots and hanging baskets particularly tend to need a lot more care anyway, need a lot more watering anyway, because they are really reliant on us to water and feed them. So when we got them in hanging baskets, they are in desperate need of watering, particularly in pots as well. So I was trying to move away from growing plants in pots. Not as easy as it sounds, but I'm still trying to move away from growing plants in pots. But if they are in the ground, they will last much longer. Tammy Stu says, my soil is that dry. I dug down to my knee joint and it was still dry. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It is so dry there. Digwell says, a bit like your humour there. Jenny says, same here. I cannot remember the last time I watered the no-dig beds apart from new plantings. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for no-dig, and newly planted plants do. I mean, I have to admit, I do no-dig. My plants generally seem to do okay when they're newly planted. I do water them pretty much daily, but once they're established, I then go to once a week if needed. But when I do water, I give them a really thorough watering. 2. Scott says, I think if you water too much, the roots won't go down to find water themselves, so won't survive a drought as don't have a deep root system. This is one of the key points as well. By getting plants to seek their own water, by getting our plants to go deeper in search of water, they will have a deep root system. And bigger, deeper roots mean bigger, stronger plants. So yes, very, very important point there. Turbo Stuart says, my leeks have been watered only twice since I planted them out a few weeks ago. I did water them in good, though. Good. Scott says, especially with root veg like carrots and parsnips. Yes. They're a prime example because that taproot is exactly doing what we're saying. It's searching for that water. It's going down in search of water and creating and trying to find that. So good stuff. Anna says, Monty Don was staying on Gardener's World that he only waters new plants once. After that, it's up to them to survive. I don't believe him. I don't know. Would he lie? I don't know. I've seen, I mean, this is going back a few years ago when I very rarely watch Gardener's World, I'm going to be honest with you. When it was on, when I did have a TV, but I saw it once and he did water his plants in incredibly well. You know, a lot of water when he first got the plants in. So possible, I don't know. I find it hard to believe, but it depends how good the plants are when they go in. It's the other thing. Jenny says, Digwell, I think a lot of people lose their plants from overwatering. The roots stay near the surface. They don't reach down and find it killed with love. Absolutely. Nicholas says, Charles Down just did a video saying he was watering due to the weather recently. New crops mainly. There you go. So I'm sure, well, new crops mainly. I mean, that makes sense. Digwell says, I watched a lady water a whole plot in 10 minutes. Amazing. Love to know a secret. Yeah. It's not little and often either, is it? Because that's just little, often, not wasting. As I said, give it a good soaking when you can. I water most of my garden every evening. I would never water the grass as it looks after itself. Don't need to water the grass. That being said, I saw this clover lawn the other week and it looked fantastic and doesn't need watering. So clover, and I've got a little area where I've left clover to grow on my garden now because it just looks great. Charles Dowden has to, as it is his livelihood at risk. Yes, you cannot forget that his livelihood is at risk, so he does have to take precaution. But at the same time, he does know what he's doing. He talks a lot from his experience as well. Monty's garden floods in the winter, so perhaps he can get away with it. I don't know. Fully Yoast has joined. My hair is like Harmony Granger in a Philosopher's Stone, if that answers your question. Yeah, does that answer your question? How you were coping with this hot weather? I feel the same. My hair's a complete and utter mess. It's like, yeah, it's not quite standing on the end, but it is so hot and dry, it does feel like it. Did I pronounce it Fully Yoast? Fully Yoast, yeah. So unfortunately on Instagram, I can't bring the comments up, but yeah, my hair does feel so dry, which is such a manly thing to say, isn't it? Such a manly thing to say. Jenny says, I also place a dish or similar under some pots so the plants can take the water that runs through back up. Yeah, I do that with all my pots. They're all in saucers at this time of year so that they can take some of that water up. Turbo Stream says, my lawn has clover, so I back off the mowing in June as the bees love the flowers. Yeah, I'm really quite liking these clover lawns at the moment. I've only got a small area, but it's making all the difference. The thing is, I tend to think of lawn cuttings being good for my compost material at the same time. So it's the only reason I would want grass. But I'm liking the I'm liking the clover lawns. Digwell says you hit the nail on the head. The water table plays an important, so every area is different with watering needs. Yes, and absolutely, water table is such an important part. I don't know what my water table here is, to be fair with you, but I'm like, I don't know, quarter of a mile from the sea, maybe a bit more than that. It's hard. I haven't worked it out. 10 minutes walk from the sea. So I suspect I've got quite a high water table, but I've also got clay soil, which is incredibly hard to break through. But I suspect my water table is probably quite high here. Is there any way you can find out how deep your water table is? That's a question to ask. Some plants appreciate to dry out a little between watering. This is the case with chilies, isn't it? Chilies sometimes like to dry out a bit in between watering. But my experience with chilies is that not necessarily the case. I find I get better chilies when they are constantly moist. No drying out, constantly moist. Um, that's my experience, though. I've heard this about drying them out. It doesn't seem to make any difference to me. My hair is like Voldemort's. Jenny says, try to keep tomato watering regular and not too much to avoid bottom end splitting. Yeah, I think that's the same with all plants. So if we've got to keep it regular, they will do better for it. Digger says, if played properly, then you force things like chilies to produce more fruit by drying out slightly. They think it's the end of the road for them to try and make new offspring. I do it. See, I find this interesting. I do find this interesting because I've conducted experiments and I found that when I kept the soil consistently moist, they did better. I will admit that the logic behind it, a plant that is suddenly thinking, oh, it's going to struggle. I need to go and pot on more flowers and make more chilies and make more seeds to make more young plants. It's stressing it does make sense. But my experience completely flies in the face of that. Tabby Smith says, my allotment takes ages to dry out, but when it does, it bakes solid. It's solid now. Yeah, with you there. Chili Kit says, our chilies are really sulking this year. You know what? My chilies are doing really well, especially in the greenhouse, actually. The greenhouse chilies are, well, we've got chilies on there. Aubergines are producing, tomatoes, cucumbers. Greenhouse has been a godsend this year, I have to say. And keep the calcium levels up a bit to stop blossom end rot. Do not use magnesium. Yeah, calcium levels. I like to try and add some in my wormeries. I add some eggshells, and that goes into the compost, and that does help, I believe, with calcium levels. Scott says, I haven't watered my allotment in about 2 weeks because I haven't had time, but I do think I will learn that I was watering too much before. Yeah, I think everyone learning how much to water your plants, and some plants need a bit more water, and some plants need more water at a certain point. So lettuce, for example, is one that I think needs a lot of water. But I'm trying to think of an example. Chilies are one that doesn't need as much water, probably a good example. But lettuce, I think, if you don't water lettuce enough, it tends to go a bit tough, I find. So lettuce and radishes is another prime example, actually. Radishes are incredibly easy to bolt. So I find that if you water them regularly, keep them moist at all times, they tend to do much better. Right, let's go. It seems like a good chance to go to this week's cook along. This is about a 4.5 minute video, this one, but it was to make some coleslaw. Okay, so for this week's recipe, you want me to make coleslaw. Coleslaw really easy, and this is also a way to extend any coleslaw you have. Just add onion. No, let's do that again. Onion, cabbage, carrots, and mayonnaise. So first things first, let's take this onion, and we're just going to try and very finely slice it. Now, we could do this in a food processor with a great function. Our dishwasher at the moment isn't working, so we're trying to keep our washing up to a minimum. We'll take that into this bowl, and we're just going to try and break it up as it goes on in. And the same with the other half. There we go. So cabbage, I've gone for a red cabbage here because I think it looks better in a coleslaw. We're not going to use the whole cabbage. I think we're just probably going to use half of it. We want to obviously cut out that woody stalk, if you like. We don't need that. And we've got this cabbage again. Try and cut it quite thinly. It's quite a small cabbage, this one, but nonetheless it is a cabbage. Came from my garden, so it's always very, very well appreciated. So again, that goes into this bowl. Try and break it up as much as possible. I like to get my hands right in here and give us a good mix. Try and mix all that cabbage and onions together and break it up so that there's a good mix. Then the final thing, we got 2 carrots here. I'm just going to top and tail them. I'm leaving the skins on because why not? And we're going to grate this into the bowl. So there we go, that's all the vegetables. We're just going to give it a good mix together. Make sure it's all working good. There's quite a bit of coleslaw here, this will keep us going for a while. We're going to add in some of Amanda's homemade mayonnaise using our own eggs, oil, vinegar, a bit of mustard, garlic. Anything to add a bit of flavour to mayonnaise we like to add in. And give that a good stir. I think that's going to need a bit more mayonnaise, but we are there with our homemade coleslaw. Let's go back to the studio and see how it tastes. Well, there we go. That is what it looks like, the final result, but what does it taste like is the question. I do love homemade mayonnaise. I've said this before. I do love homemade mayonnaise. So, sorry, I really sort of forced that into my mouth there. That was really nice. Really nice. Proper homemade coleslaw. I am going to give that 9.5 out of 10 because that is really nice and really crunchy, delicious and easy to make. And we got so much of it. It's absolutely delicious. Let's have a quick look on the comments. So Digwell says, I gave my son half a dozen thin sweet peppers the other day. He had them to a dish and they nearly blew his head off. Turns out I'd mislabeled them. They were cayenne chilies. It happens though, doesn't it? That's why labeling is so important. Tomato Stream, I am watering my onions as normal. I am bad at watering them. I mulched them this time to see what difference it makes. Well, this is the time when they'll start bulbing up. If they're your spring sown ones, they should start bulbing up from now on until about August. Digwa says if onions get a bit dry, then the flavours increase. Interesting observation. Andrew says, Richard, if you're concerned about microplastics, I would go back to using wooden chopping boards. You know what? I'm after a decent wooden chopping board purposely for this show. Or I might go for glass. I'm not sure. It's hard. It's hard. But you are right. I'm going to have to drag that, mention that to the wife because she's the one that really is worried about microplastics. But yeah, perhaps we do need to go back to wooden ones. Turbo Stream says these were sown in April, Digwell, so they haven't bulbed up yet. Believe it or not, wooden chopping boards are more hygienic as they naturally kill bacteria, etc. I have got my own, or made my own wooden chopping boards in the past, but I think we may have got rid of them. Hashtag cook along. I know it's not veg, but it's eggs. Mayonnaise. Yeah, we can do that. We've done that before, but we can do it again. Should be bulbing up rapidly now the shortest day has gone. Great cook along. Thanks. Great cook along. And not so far, but fingers crossed. Digwell says a nice, easy coleslaw. Yeah, it is a nice, easy. You know, I like to keep things simple. You could obviously jazz it up a bit and add, I don't know, perhaps some chili to make a chili coleslaw or something else if you wanted to. But yeah, I love them. I love coleslaw. Looks very yummy, says Jenny. I don't. When is the last day to plant onion sets? So, right, onion sets. So, you've missed it basically. Onions tend to grow to the longest day, and which was the 21st of June. So we've been past it, and then after that, they start to bulb up. So except for overwintered onions, of course. Now, I plant some onion sets in October, November time, and they will grow through the winter, and they will be my early onions. These are the ones that tend to pull up a flower spike. And then onion sets, you can plant out as late as March, April, and they should be okay. But obviously, you have missed it now, I would say. Certainly here in the UK, I think, but if anybody else has an opinion on that, I'd love to hear it. Go for wood, not bamboo. Yep, of course. You can't really a chopping wooden block. So easy to clean. I'm trying to think what's happened to our wooden chopping boards anyway, because I can't think where they've gone. But yeah, I do need one purposely. I need to get some stuff purposely for these cook-alongs. I need a kitchen of its own, to be honest with you. Look at Kev from English Small Holding. He makes his own garden tools, etc. Such a talented chap. I'll send a link to him. Thank you. Please do send that. I'll watch that. Can't beat a wooden chopping board. Definitely wouldn't go with glass. Good enough. Fair enough. I take your information on that, Scott, to heart. So I can't figure out where our ones have gone. Plus, wooden ones are kind of on your knives. Yeah. Idaho, I went to a nursery and they were giving away bags of onion sets. They look fine, but I guess it's because it's too late to plant. Yeah, I saw a garden centre selling onion sets a couple of weeks ago, discounted. And it's because they're too late to plant. It's just too late to plant them. And they were trying to sell them. But they're soon going to be selling or certainly here in the UK anyway, our overwintered onion sets. They're going to be out probably August, ready to go into the garden. Or in August, we could actually sow seeds to overwinter. If we get the right varieties, I'll probably do that with the supporters club, sow onion seeds in the right way. Love coleslaw, says Scott. I think that's what he says anyway. Love coleslaw, Korean style with gugan. Oh, lovely, lovely. And Tammy Stream says the social media influencers will say not to use wooden board too. But they wouldn't they? You can't win either way. I use a wooden board and damn them, I say. You do sound a bit like somebody else there. I'm like, yeah, it's whatever's suitable for anybody. It's whatever is suitable for you. Whatever you prefer there's no right or wrong. There are concerns over microplastics, which we've discussed before. Rightly or wrongly, there are concerns. Oh, that cold squash. It's starting to cool down now. Is anybody else feeling like it's starting to cool down a bit now, which is good because it means we can walk the dog afterwards. Actually, that brings me up to a good point of something that we haven't really talked about: animals. Now, I say that because we are vegetable gardeners, so we don't really talk about animals so much. Probably because we're not got sheep and cows or things like that. But I have a dog, and I also have chickens. I used to have quail too, but the chickens, um, I've got to make sure they get plenty of water and they're kept cool as well. Same as Roxy, the dog. And we don't let her out during the day when it's hot, apart from a quick trip in the garden. But we don't take her on walks when it's hot. We just let her do her own thing. But one of the most important things we do with all our animals is make sure there's plenty of water for them all the time, especially when it's hot. Even dropping in the odd ice cube to cool things down as well. And if you've got chickens, or even honeybees for that matter, a good bit of water or access to water is essential, but also making sure they don't get too hot. I've seen my chickens before when they were in a different location, a really hot day, they spread their wings out quite wide like that and had their mouths open, were just standing there like that. And it was because they were trying to cool themselves down. Um, so looking after your animals is very, very, very important. I have a wooden butcher's block. It's a little wonky and started to split, but it's my old faithful. There we go. Yeah, wooden. That's what I need. I need a butcher's block in my kitchen, just for you guys when I do these grow alongs. Can you keep till next year? Generally, I find that the onion sets don't keep very well. I find because they're sort of onion sets have started growing basically, and then they've ripped out the ground and sold off as onion sets. So when you try and store them, they're not going to store very well at all. So they really are something that needs planting straight away or used up. Digwell says you can always put the cheap onion sets in the fridge until October or make pickled onions with them. I would go down the pickled onion routes. I've read that one. I mean, if World War III breaks out, then a wooden chopping board is the last of your worries. I'm going to add a very random. I'm going to ask a very random question here because my wife Amanda's convinced World War III is just around the corner. Is anybody else worried about World War III breaking out or think it's likely? Again, we're not going to judge. Just a general question. Digwell, you can always. Oh no, I've read that one. I have some like that called spatchcock chicken. Yeah, yeah. Nicholas says, Richard, if you want to increase the life of mayo in the fridge, add a tablespoon of the whey, stir into mayo, sit it out for 8 hours. Extend. I'm sorry, I think. Oh, whey from yogurt, right? Yeah, I don't find we need to. We get plenty of life out of our. We get plenty of life out of our. What was I thinking? We get plenty of life out of our mayo, but it's a good tip. It's a good tip. Scott says butcher's blocks are amazing. I am always on the look for cheap one, but hard to come across. I have to keep my eye out for one. Wife will kill me though. Whey from yogurt. Only if we dragged into it. Oh, well, free. Yeah, I worried only if we dragged into it. Yeah, not been that hot in Cornwall over the last overcast here, but humid. Lucky you. It's been really hot here. Really hot here. Nicholas says my chickens have loads of shades in their run under trees or brambles. Yeah, but that's all good. They need the shade. It's very easy to forget about them, but they need shade just as much as anybody else. You can find butcher's blocks online. They're great value for money and they will last a lifetime. And Jenny says mine was a £20 lockdown purchase. That's interesting. Interesting. I will keep my eye out for one. Okay, so we've done the cook along, we've done the mission, we've discussed how we can or how we're coping with the gardening in heat, although we can still add a bit more to it. But I think it is now time for a Richard's rant. Now, this week's rant is one that has really annoyed me over this weekend. I've had a really, really, really busy weekend. I have a really, really busy few weeks, to be honest with you. But this rant is not necessarily gardening related, but it is a bit of a rant. And just hear me out. So, my rant, some of you might know about this. My rant is about printers. You know, those things that we print onto paper. Every house pretty much has one these days, or every office certainly does. Now, I've had printers for years, and I've often found them to be unreliable. I found that I've hardly ever used my printer, so when I did use it, it was normally dry or something like that. So in recent years, where I've started using a printer pretty much quite regularly, I thought that would solve it. But no, I've had a lot of problems with printers, basically chewing up paper, chewing up things, printer heads then getting damaged, things like that are going on. And I thought it was just me. I thought it was just me that was having troubles with printer. But my wife, has worked in an office her entire working period life. She has said that even in her office, the printers would regularly break down. I was like, what? What do you mean? She said, it's common in all offices, printers regularly break down. I've had, in my office, I'm new to an office, as you know, but in my office, the printer is not very reliable. And then my brother, who works in IT, has said the same thing. Yeah, printers are not reliable at all. So my rant is, why has nobody invented a reliable printer? This is something I've tried to say to my brother, to my wife, and they come back with, well, it's an intricate machine, it's going to break down. Why has nobody made a reliable printer? Why is it so unreliable that you end up wasting so much paper, so much stuff, just to try and get things printed? It's not right. It is not right. Somebody needs to invent a really reliable printer. Now, I know that is completely off topic and probably not what you were expecting for a rant, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you worked in an office, how often does your printer break down? Or how often do you get problems with a printer? Because it's frustrating when it does go. Where were we? Scott says, I think it's likely, unfortunately, but always will be humans wage war. Sad but true. Yeah, so it could be likely. I don't know. If we do end up in war, I don't think it's going to come from where we expect it to, though. Turbo Stream, none of us can stop a war. No point worrying about something that I have no influence on. I totally agree there. As a child of the 70s, we're getting nuked, but hasn't happened so far. Totally agree. No point worrying about something we cannot influence. Digwell says, when I was in the Royal Navy, we were told the threat was from China, not Russia. But now the risk of World War III is minimal. Any threat from the Middle East would be squashed by all nations and not escalate. Interesting. I like that. Nicholas says, is the crown 1 to 3 after the comment? Something new YouTuber put in. I'm not keen on it myself, but it's a competition, I guess. Whoever comments the most gets a higher up the scoreboard. Jenny knew the printer rant was coming. Top chat rewards. Oh yeah, talking about that. Scott says, I'm thinking the used ones with age to them. They are expensive, but never thought of a new one. Will have a look. I don't know. I have to look into it. There we go. Here's one for you to think over. Do aliens believe in us? I don't know. I believe, I'm going to be controversial here possibly, really not garden related, but I believe there must be life on other planets. I'm not saying they visit us, but I believe there must be life on other planets. If the universe is infinite in size, what makes us so special? What are the chances that this one single planet is the only place that has life? I can't see it. At all. Printer rent that has been annoying you now for a few days. It has been. Digworth says, think everlasting light bulb. Why would they? Ford used to make fan blades out of balance so your car water pump would fail. Because a printer always breaks. I think if somebody invented a printer, I'm not saying it would never break down, but one that would reliably work for several years would be very convenient. But I'm hearing, like my wife says, they're always jamming and things like that. Why? Turbo Stream says, I worked in a £500,000 digital printing press. You think your desktop printer is bad? You ain't seen nothing, believe me. I'm sure. That printer advert springs to mind, the one where they throw it out the window. Yes. See, it is a thing, isn't it? Printers are not reliable in an office. What is it about a printer that is not reliable? Many years ago, we had a rank Xerox printer in an office which was not cheap but fairly reliable. There we go. Our school printer at school goes wrong most weeks. There we go. Only interested on planets that we can grow veg on. Grow veg on a planet, like Mars or something. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Andrew says, I always resisted buying a printer because they always seem problematic. I'd rather go to my local photocopy shop. Yeah. If I could do that, I would. Home office printers seem to have problems. I think just office printers seem to have problems as well. Gary says, don't they make money from ink anyway? Cheap printers, expensive ink. Yeah, basically, yeah. That's a very good point. They make more money from the ink than from the printers. So if the printers were reliable, they would probably sell more ink. Yeah. Digwell says, here we go. I blame the user. I had mine for 3 years, only ever screwed up a dozen times, and most of them were my fault for using the wrong paper settings. Digwell, we went through my settings with you last night? And same settings as you. It just almost the same printer. I went out and bought a new printer today, and it works a bit better. Much better. Turbo Stu says, my printer won't connect with my new laptop as it's too old. It's a bloody good printer too. I need to turn my old printer to print anything off. There we go. And Jenny says, unfortunately, we have a throwaway culture. Nothing is made to last anymore. As you know, I used to make a living out of repairing fridges. So things are not made to last anymore because of tolerances in the metals. They've made them thinner and thinner, which means they're less likely to last. But it does make some good, interesting questions. So before we run to the test, check on Instagram. We will be doing the draw in just a moment for the mission and the cook along. I can see we've had 1 hashtag mission and 2 hashtag cook alongs. So if you've got any other ideas or anything you want to throw in another couple of minutes. Throw it into another couple of minutes before we do the draw. Throw it in the chat. Epson Eco tanks are so economical. No cartridges, just buy a new bottle of ink when you need it. Once every 2 years, £7.95 per colour. Yeah, my Eco tank, I'm actually on the subscription service, which it actually works out really, really well, or it would do. I pay $7.99 a month, I think it was, and when I run low, the ink just arrives at my door. But I've got to say, it's not been working as well as it used to. They don't seem as good as they used to. But then I just looking at, you change the ink every 2 years. I go through yellow every 6 months and the black every year, as an example. Everything is cheap and tap, but twice the price. Topic for next week. Next week's topic, yes, seed saving. Are you saving any seeds, or are you growing plants to save seeds from? Is what I want to talk about next week. Seed saving. Slightly topical, I know, but I think it's an important one. And it doesn't just extend to seeds. We're also talking about things like garlic, potatoes, onions, shallots, anything like that you can save seeds from. I want to find out if you are doing it. Digger says, I stand by my comment. I blame the user. Cheers, buddy. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Hashtag cook along. Strawberry sando Japanese sandwich M&S are kind of selling one. Ooh, interesting. That sounds like a good topic. By the way, guys, I'm not going to remember your suggestions for a mission or challenge or cook along. So when the draw comes up, you will have to let us know what it is when we do that draw, which we're going to do in a minute. When my clock says 1923, we will start the draw. Jenny likes the sound of that topic. I think it's very topical because I think we're trying to save seeds a bit more here. And it's something that is, if you're on a budget, it's a good idea to try and save seeds. Plus, you end up getting stuff that is tailored to your own area. And I do like saving seeds. I do like saving seeds as well. I saw these. I wonder if they will catch on. These are the strawberry sando Japanese strawberry sandwich. Excuse me. I've not seen them myself. I've not been in Marks and Spencer's for a few months. But strawberry sandwich, is it like a strawberry jam? I don't know, strawberry jam in a sandwich. That's not unusual, is it? Good topic, but I agree with everything, Sister Quill. I think it is a topic that we grow food a lot of the time, but we've got to think about how we can grow food. Those sandwiches look well awful. Let's say if World War III does kick off, I'm not saying it will, but we may have to look at saving seed in order to survive. I don't know. Google it. Strawberry and cream sandwich. I'm more of a Waitrose man these days. And Scott says they do in Japan. Have a look online. They are a sweet sandwich with fruit and cream. Still using bread, is it? Does it still use bread? Anyway, it is 1923 according to my clock. So let's go to, which one is it? Let's go to the mission, which we're going to put like that. We've only had one entry for this one. I can't remember what it was, so why isn't it working? Oh, it doesn't work on that one because there's only one mission. Whoever put a mission in, who put a mission in? I tell you what, let's try this. Let's take mission. Let's see if it comes up here. Let's see if that changes it. Oh, there we go. We got 3. Oh, it works on. I'm loading something here. We've got 3. It works on Facebook as well. Please be Jenny. Please be Jenny. Oh! It's me. It's me. Let's draw again. Well, actually, no. We know it was Jenny's. We know that what that was. It was Jenny's mission. Then Jenny, I can't remember what it was, but let us know. Let us know. Digwell says, what if World War III does kick off? There will be no UK to save seeds for. We all live near to a base of interest for enemies to destroy. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Stuart says, couldn't find a strawberries and cream sandwich in Aldi. Jenny, be home. Be home. That's right. Make a pollinator drinking station or bird bath. That's it. I remember now. So pollinator drinking station or bird bath to make for next week. That's going to be a good one. So let's go to the cook along as well. Is that? There we go. So let's see if it's came up. Just want to make sure it has. There we go. So we've had 3 entries for this one, and I haven't had to help at all. Let's see who we have. 3 good choices. Who's going to win it? It is Gary. Gary's the winner on that one. So, Gary, I can't remember what it was. So it's up to you to put in the comments what you want me to cook, what you want me to do in a cook along. I can see you've just said, can I remove mine? I vote sandwich. If you want to do the sandwich, do it. I had the coleslaw last week too. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Up to you. It's up to you what you want me to do, as you know. Let's have a quick look at your photos before we finish up, because I nearly forgot about them. So, first of all, Jenny harvested her elephant garlic, which looks absolutely fantastic. I think she's very, very pleased with her elephant garlic. I would be too. It's a good time for harvesting elephant garlic at the moment, and we're getting plenty of it. Steve has got his cauliflowers in straw bales, which are starting to bulk up nicely. This is a great example of how good straw bales are for growing a wide range of vegetables, including cauliflowers. It's not what you would think to grow in these sort of things, but it shows that it can be done. Nikki's allotment is growing nicely. Nikki's a new member in the group, but she's shared a few photos of her allotment. These were her potatoes. Please do go and check out her photos and add a comment, because it's always good to encourage that. Kate has got her black tomatoes, which she says are looking great, and they certainly do look great. Certainly very different. I'd love to know, do they cook, when they cook up, are they still black or do they go red? Love to know that. Please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group, send to me via social media, or email me, richard@adventuregrowpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@adventuregrowpodcast.co.uk. I had coleslaw last week too. It was a fruit sandwich. BBC has pick of one with kiwi and mango. As I said, Gary, you won the thing, so it's up to you what we do. Banana sandwich, yum yum. It looks like it's this strawberry sandwich, though, doesn't it? Digwell says, believe me, we do. Yeah, near a base of interest. There's always, we're what, one of the sixth, I think we're like the sixth most powerful country in the world. We're going to be a target no matter what. So I don't want to dwell on it. We can't control it. If it happens, it happens. It's just not pleasant. It's not pleasant, but it may not happen. I grew up on banana sarnies. I used to love a banana sandwich. I couldn't eat it now because of the sugar involved, but I used to love a banana sandwich. Somebody I knew who owned a pub, he used to have bacon and banana sandwiches, interestingly. Gary, full of notes. I send over, what fruit would you like in a sandwich? Just making sure I get it right, says Jenny. So, Gary, let Jenny know which fruit one you would want me to do. South Coast first, Digwell. We probably would be, or London might be, but we probably would be hit first. However, we got some quite good defences still from World War II, which could be put back into use. So we've got a bit of defence here. Who knows? Who knows? Fruit that Richard has harvested recently where possible. So strawberry is going to be the one there. Cheddar and strawberry sandwiches. Cheddar and strawberry sandwiches. How interesting. How interesting. Gary says, great photos. Okay, thank you. Right, I think we are just about done because I think we're all hot. It's been a good conversation. I know it's a lot to think about when we are thinking of heat, hot weather, but it's been a really good conversation. Next week, we're going to be talking about seed saving because it's such an important thing I think we need to do, not just vegetable seeds, but flower seeds as well. But I'm going to go and stand under the hosepipe for a bit and cool down. Thanks so much for chatting with us tonight. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please do give us a like, a thumbs up, a follow, a subscribe, and don't forget to click the notifications so that you know when we go live. We go live every Sunday at 6 anyway, so we will be back again next Sunday at 6 for another conversation. Right, guys, you take care. I'll see you again next time.